And welcome to Martial Mentality, a martial arts inspired podcast. And today we have a collab with Beyond the Dojo, and we have our special guest, Sifu En Loe Boyd.
What's up?
So today our topic is going to be traditional martial arts and its effectiveness. So real quick, we're just going to kind of go around the table and share some of our martial arts experience and our background, so you just know who we are. So we're going to start with our guest, Sifu En Loe.
Hey, what's going on? Sifu En Loe Boyd here. I've been doing martial arts at Lohan School of Shaolin about 20 years. Before that, I did about 3 years of American Kempo. I actually got a black belt in that. Got it exactly a month before I graduated high school. And then I started at Lohan in October of that same year, so that was like 2005. And then I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about 7 years. Like I did a couple years with Sergio Pena, but then I would quit a lot. Got into powerlifting, got into bodybuilding, and got stuck with my Kung Fu roots, of course, as well, And then I started up with Fred Senpai Shao when I was like 31, and I've been training with him since. He took me from white to black belt and turned me into two-time American national champion in the IBJJF.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I won American nationals at blue and at brown.
That's man, congratulations, man. That's awesome.
That's commendable. That's awesome.
What about you, Trevor?
Hi, my name is Trevor Taylor. I'm one of the assistant instructors here. I've been training with Sifu Delmar for around 15 years now.
Something like that.
I think it'll be 15 in August.
Yeah, because you just turned 30. So, yeah, that sounds about right. Well, my name's Sifu Delmar. I've been training for about, 21, 22 years now, something like that. Have my black belt in Ishinryu Karate, and I have a black sash in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu.
My name is Joseph Blackwelder. I am a student here at the Northern Shaolin School of Kung Fu. I've been training about 2.5 years. Just got my orange sash.
Congratulations.
Right on.
It feels good. It feels good. And I fell in love with it. I've always had an interest in martial arts. Took me until 30 years of age to start, but I feel like now it's a lifelong endeavor.
Better late than never.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Sifu, I wanna pick your brain a little bit. And shout out to the Lohan. I got my Lohan shirt on today.
Nice.
I thought about bringing my red one.
So
I need to get one.
Make sure I shout out the Lohan School.
Yes,
and
sir.
to piggyback off of that, so you say you trained at the Lohan School for 20 years, which is phenomenal. So how would you say that experience has shaped your martial arts philosophy? And also feel free to share any stories you like, any history about the Lohan School. We'd love to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, Lohan is like so pivotal for me. Like Sifu, like another father for me. I guess as the meaning of the term Sifu, that would make sense. But even more so, like I don't throw that around like lightly, because my actual dad was pretty cool. But so Sifu was up there, so like the philosophy of like cross training, of like making sure what you do is effective. Not even just like the fighting aspect of it, even the spiritual aspect of it. He was very big on like, well, does this really work for you? But also find out for yourself. Like that was one of the first things he told me. When I started in October of 2005, I was taking the normal classes, but then I took another break because I was like, well, let me see if I really like it. And I was like, no, I really do. Like, I was like, I should start back. I had all this free time, and I was like, hey, Sifu, can I do private lessons with you? And he gave me like a hugely discounted rate because I was doing private lessons with Sifu Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
That's
a lot.
And private lessons are usually really expensive.
Yeah.
How long were your lessons?
About hour and a half. He even said it helped him. He was like, yeah, you get me back in shape. I'm like, what? Like, he's like, yeah, because, he taught me like, well, I had already knew Salute, but he taught me Lohan, Limpo, Firewater Staff, Shaolin 6, taught me Shaolin 7, taught me Piercing Hands, taught me Bumbo. And I think he taught me Shaolin 8, actually. So he taught me a grip of stuff, like, and so we were just reviewing a bunch of that. And then after a while, he was like, hey, you should go join the regular classes because your school brothers, they won't respect you, they don't grow with you. So he said the first thing he wanted me to do, he wanted me to test. They're doing testing. He's like, I have to go visit my mom in Cali real quick, but when I come back after the weekend, make sure you've tested. And I was just testing for my green sash, which is like one of the basic like adult sashes,
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. I jumped in over that weekend testing, got to spar with Sifu Raul a little bit because I had kind of known him from the normal classes, but we linked up again. You know, we sparred, went over applications, went over the forms I knew. The next thing you know, I got it, right? Not like the next day, but like they take a little time because they want to do a big ceremony and want to give it to everybody, you know. But when Sifu had heard I had passed, he was like, good, I'm glad. So be ready to start going to regular classes. I'll see you around, all right? And I was like, okay, bet. Because that's pretty impressive too, because most people would just keep the private lessons going because that's cash, you know? And, you know, but at the same time, he was like, no, it's okay. Like, just join a regular class, you know, because now I need to see how you bond with your brothers, you know. Even though I've known Easy, which is one of my Sihings, Sifu Easy, I've known him since we were 11. But it was good to be able to bond with him too through training, just like I did all the rest of them, you know.
What was your motivation, if I could ask, for doing private lessons versus just joining the class initially?
I wanted to learn quicker.
Just learn quicker, get the extra work.
And like, I do learn fast.
Right.
So I was like, well, let me learn as much as I
Trying
can.
to make your training effective. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then I was like, you know, I was supposed to be going to college and I didn't. So I was just like, all right, well, you know.
I'm gonna train.
Yeah, I'm gonna train at least, you know. So
Gotcha.
I have all this free time. Like, how do I maximize it? And I was like, all right, well, because like I was already working at the time myself. Obviously, I was a bagger at the commissary, Nellis Commissary. My parents are like retired military. My dad
Gotcha.
was like a retired sergeant major.
Okay.
Nice.
So
okay,
that was like my first job was like working at the commissary.
Nice.
And if those that don't know, like the baggers, they only make tips. They don't have an hourly wage.
Yeah.
So you're just out there taking bags to people's cars,
Yeah.
you know, and you get paid that way. Sometimes some people will be like, oh, I'm sorry. But
Right.
most people know what time it is.
Yeah.
So to kind of
Yeah, very good.
piggyback off of his question, I'm kind of curious. Did you feel like your private lessons kind of helped you get further faster, or did you feel like you grew a little bit more when you went to the regular class, like, or was it a combination of both?
So it was a combination of both. But when it came to getting the curriculum down, I learned the curriculum faster. Plus, I already had martial arts background.
Right.
So a lot of it too was like Sifu would give me little tidbits to help me to differentiate from my previous martial arts experience, but still use the previous martial arts experience I had positively towards learning Kung Fu.
Gotcha.
You know, but then I started to grow more as a person in the classes because you're dealing with different personalities too. Some people just don't understand too that like, hey man, like some people learn fast. So like some of it was kind of an issue with like some people that were like my seniors. It doesn't take away that they're not my seniors. Like they're still my seniors.
Correct.
You know.
Yep.
But you know, we were young, so some people don't get that. So sometimes there was a little butting heads because some people weren't happy that I was picking up fast because I put it on somebody in Chisao or in sparring, then it's like it's a little bit of an issue.
Right.
But I'm like, hey, like, you know, like, but then they realize, oh, you're cool. Like, you know, it's not
Right.
you know, like we just got, you know,
Yeah.
emotions got out of hand, things like that. So that's
Yeah.
they're like, it was twofold. It was like, now I realize it is like, it was for me and it was for like them too, you know, because we had another student who was like that too, MJ, and he learned really fast, you know, but he was like Olympic level Taekwondo. Like dude was in shape. He would be running like miles.
Yeah.
And then the days he wasn't running miles, he was doing sprints, you know, and could kick faster than most people could punch, you know.
Right.
But like he got held back because he was testing for like a higher belt, higher sash, and Sifu held him back on purpose. So there was like a method to the madness, you know. It was super cool.
Right.
Sounds to me like, you know, Dashi Stephen Ba was very methodical about how he trained people, and it sounded like he was very very traditional, as in, I'm going to give you what you need specifically to help you grow. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's
Yeah,
kind of his
100%.
personality?
Almost like he tailored the curriculum to each person.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he totally did that, you know. And I think that's like why I think he's one of the best instructors I've ever had, you know, and like lays the foundation for like how I want to teach too, because it's just like you can't paint everybody with a broad stroke. You know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you know someone has like different martial arts experience, there's no real reason to like make them do like super ultra beginner stuff. You know.
Here's how you throw a jab.
Yeah, because clearly they know.
Right.
Right.
Right,
Like,
right.
You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, he was really intelligent about that. He's one of the first instructors I knew too that like wasn't big on just making people do calisthenics for no reason. You know,
Yeah.
because that's a whole thing in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu community, where people in the jiu-jitsu community, people are like, the warm-ups need to be better, you know, because like some people will have you warm up like running around and jumping jacks, and it's like, well, that's not gonna really help you as much as you would think on the mat. You know, like you need more technique. So
Right.
but like Sifu was like really ahead of his time because he was like, it's not that we never did stuff like that. There would be calisthenics, you know?
Right. Of course.
But like but a pointless amount.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because Sifu was big on lifting, and I feel the same way. Like, I made more improvement lifting weights and like lifting heavy weights than any like push-ups. You know, like that's not to say calisthenics don't work or they don't have a place, but it's just like
I've heard so many mixed opinions on weightlifting versus calisthenics over the years. When it comes to that, like some people will say when you're training heavy weights, you're training to get stronger, you're getting bigger, but like. Whereas calisthenics, for doing push-up, you're training for being like faster. But it's all relative. I feel like like you should be well versed.
Yeah,
you should be strong, quick. You know, so it's
the way you move the weight matters too for how fast you are.
Right.
You know, like sprinters lift heavy weights.
Right.
But they still their main goal is still to be fast.
Right.
Because like you can't move fast unless you can produce force. It's like they call it rate of force production. Yeah.
Okay.
Like as long as you're not moving like extra slow like a turtle on purpose lifting weights.
Right.
Like you're just moving the weight at like a normal pace, then you'll be fine. Like it's not gonna affect your speed.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, like one thing that I can honestly say about Sifu, with my, you know, short time with him, he actually really changed the way I thought about actually teaching and running a martial arts school. And so here at the Northern Shaolin School of Kung Fu, I actually try, and I continue to say try, because I try to emulate the Lohan School because I love the way they do their curriculum. I love the way they do their structure. The classroom bond there is phenomenal. I mean, just with our short visits there, I mean, we feel like family. You know, I'm excited that, you know, when I meet people who are Lohans, they accept me even though I don't live there per se. And, you know, they treat me like I've been there forever. And so that, you don't get that a lot when you go to different schools.
That was really cool, especially since, because I know he went before. My first time out there, I've only ever seen you guys off Facebook and YouTube. So to actually get to go there in person and meet all y'all, and I'm like, I feel like I've known these guys for forever.
Yeah, really cool. So can't wait to go back and visit again. Joe, you got to come with us.
I want to.
Yeah, you got to.
You got
I've been checking you guys out on Facebook.
Playing this next year, right?
Yeah.
You know, I would love to try to go this year, but I ain't gonna lie, like. Just gonna be honest, all these planes and stuff like that, it kind of making me nervous.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
kind of scared to get on them right now.
I never like to fly in the first place, but I will.
But 2026 is in my plan to be like, I got to get back to Vegas.
We got to go for at least a week.
Yeah,
we should drive.
Definitely. We'll
drive.
Definitely.
That I would say drive to the desert was cool. So I'm down to fun.
Yeah, there you go.
So, you know, with your Kung Fu and your Jiu-Jitsu, how do you feel like they're different and similar? How have they, because, you know, what you see a lot of times is that Jiu-Jitsu, in my opinion, has become like the new karate.
Right.
There's a Jiu-Jitsu plays, even our area, like I was telling you last night.
It's probably more Jiu-Jitsu in Rock Hill than anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it just popped up quickly.
Right.
Okay. There's an MMA school, and they do a little bit of everything, and then there's just a Jiu-Jitsu school, and that's it.
Right. Maybe not, but there is a lot more, like, I've kind of looked at like what's around Rock Hill quite a lot, and there's several jiu-jitsu places, like one boxing place, there's an MMA place, you know, but you see jiu-jitsu quite a bit.
Yeah, it has gained popularity so quickly.
Even people that don't train, it's like they know what karate is, they know what jiu-jitsu is
now.
You know, boxing, like you know.
And I think Muay Thai is kind of going that route too.
It is.
A lot of people hear a lot of people
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I know what Muay Thai is," but for you, since you do both, like I'm curious to. You know, the similarities, the differences, or maybe even the encouragement of why both are effective. So could you expound upon that?
Okay. Yeah. So as far as what makes them different, obviously, like one's more situated to be on the ground and other one's more standing up, right? But like there's quite a few like similarities. And I was blessed to have Fretson Paixão be my jiu-jitsu coach because like not only is he a like 4-time world champion, 9-time Brazilian national champion, fought MMA, but he has an admiration for Kung Fu. A lot of people don't know that. And then like he's also known for like wrist locking people a lot too. He learned he was inspired to wrist lock by watching Aikido videos.
Interesting.
And one day he was like, you know, asking his professor Osvaldo Alves like, how come people don't do it more and stuff? And he was like, well, maybe you should and stuff like. And so they worked together to kind of like make them better, you know, like obviously wrist locks existed before Fretson, and he had a few jiu-jitsu people that would do them, but Fretson would do them from pretty much any angle And like him and his school brothers, the equivalent of like his school brothers in jiu-jitsu, they would do that. Like Jacare was good at wrist locks, Pete the Greek. So, you know, but a lot of that was inspired because like Fredson just kept an open mind, you know? And so you got to get with the right coaches too, because some people just aren't open-minded.
Some people say this is my way, this is the only way.
Right.
Because there's people that like, I'll wrist lock and they'll be like, oh, you know, Al, you got me. But then like they never do it. I'm like, why not? Just keep an open mind. Like,
Right.
You know, like, and then you don't know what a person knows, you know what I mean? Like, they'll be like, some people be like, oh, you know, like, I'll be careful with the wrist locks with you. I'm like, you need to be careful with anybody. You're not a mind reader. You better watch, you know, just in general. That's why I'm teaching you. That's why I'm wrist locking you, teaching you a better way to frame and stuff. But like, to piggyback off that, like, yeah, so like some of the chin na that we do in Kung Fu actually can work in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. It's just keeping an open mind because like people discover new techniques, even though I don't think there's nothing new under the sun, but you just bringing some shit back, you know? And then secondly, I like how I clear grips, whether it's gi or no gi, is very similar to Kung Fu, very similar to Shisao. You know, so I see those similarities. Also similarities about like, you know, don't reach like too much, like a straight limb's a broken limb. Like that's, you know, old school Kung Fu principle that we use in Jiu-Jitsu too, you know?
Right.
You know, sticking, like being able to like, obviously like you want to take away space from a person, but you want to do that in Kung Fu as well. You want to do that in Jiu-Jitsu too, right? So you have those similarities.
With your experience in jiu-jitsu, was it all ground or did you start standing a lot? Because I know you said you do swai jiao, but like...
I start standing.
Okay.
Like it wasn't so much that I did like Japanese jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Because I've never done that. But like, you know, not every jiu-jitsu person just pulls guard.
Okay.
So some people do take people down, look to pass, get on top.
I've been curious as to like how many schools are solely like ground fighting versus like, you know, it's kind of going back to what you said earlier. It depends on the teacher. It's like, this is the only way of fighting, or, you know, but like they'll stand up first. I've always been curious about that because...
Well, all matches start standing up. And in order to pull guard, you have to have a connection on somebody typically.
Gotcha.
How it starts. Unless it's like sub only, then those guys just sit to their butts.
Right.
You know, but in general, like I got introduced to judo from my boy Warren. Warren worked nightclubs with me. And he had done judo since he was a kid. Yeah. And he fought MMA up in like Seattle, Washington. So he had moved to Vegas. He had started working at the club. I was telling him I had like a Wednesday night group where like we would just work more combat applications, more sparring and stuff, you know. Yeah. And Sifu, he had given me his blessing to do that back in like 2011. You know, because I was always staying after in training. Yeah. And Sifu always admired that. Like I used to run around Chinatown. I'd come back, do forms. Yeah. You know, work the heavy bag, do some sparring, you know. And like Sifu, before Sifu would be like, oh, just lock up the front and then leave out the back, make sure the back is locked. And then eventually I got a key. So nice. That was really cool. But Warren would look at some of our forms, like Tantuis and stuff, and he'd just see us doing moves and be like, oh, that's a throw. I'm like, oh yeah? He was like, yeah. Like, I'm like, all right. And then even Sifu was like, yeah, like we really need Warren because he can help us like understand like more of the throws better. Right. You know.
How close do you think judo and swai jiao
are? They're pretty close, but like the grips are just as important in both, but they're important in different ways. Okay. Like which grips you get. There's certain grips in swai jiao that are illegal in judo. Okay. So.
Gotcha.
You know. Interesting. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there are certain grips in judo that are illegal. Like, let's say, like, if you want to get this same arm and same side, most of the time, if you get this arm, you get this side lapel, right? Okay. This same side lapel and arm you can get in swai jiao, and it's pretty OD. So you want to, you know, but we'll cover that tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
By the way, yes, these guys will be participating in the Queen Charlotte's Cup. So by the time this episode comes out, it will probably have already been done. But either way, they're both going to do awesome. They're both doing swai jiao, and you're doing sparring.
I was going to do forms and swai jiao.
Forms and swai jiao, okay. Nice. Got you. So piggybacking off of that, so I want to ask questions. You know, I see that, I mean, you post online a lot about your competitive feats and things like that, and you're traveling all over the country. Can you let us know, like, what your thoughts are about competing and things of that nature and how it helps the martial artist?
Yeah, competing is important because it gives you small goals. Because sometimes if the goals are too large, you're not going to attain them. it's like ladder, like steps on a ladder.
Doing a split
Yeah.
for me.
Mm.
It's gonna happen, but it's not like I'm gonna do a split now, tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right. Like, or any goal you want to set, if it's too lofty, you probably won't get it just because, not because you suck, but it's just because like it's just too much. Like you need
Right.
to focus on like micro goals.
Right.
But
Yeah.
like I said, it's like steps on a ladder. Like if there was a step here and a step here and nothing in between, you never climb the ladder.
Right.
True
You know?
that.
But you take these little steps, you get to the top of the ladder, right?
Yes, sir.
So you feel like competition is like, oh well, I got a competition coming up in a few months. That's my step on the ladder, and then okay, I got you. That makes sense.
And then also too, like, despite what people say with self-defense, like, you're learning to go against people you've probably never been against before.
Yep.
Yep. And that's huge for self-defense. And then also too, like, I like bursting some people's bubbles too and being controversial a little bit, but like, if you can't fight with rules, you actually can't really fight that well without them.
That's an interesting way to think
I
about
never
it.
heard it like that.
No, you need like it's good to have some parameters when people learn things.
Yeah.
It's almost like being like a child. Like like when you're a kid, we don't all raise the same, but hopefully like you have like a lot of rules, and then they start to lighten up as
Yep.
you get older.
Okay.
Because now you understand basic things, and then you can freestyle. As opposed to like letting you freestyle in the beginning and then trying to rein you in when you know what I mean? It's like that's kind of hard to do with younger people.
That's so true.
So that's kind of like that philosophy, because I get what you're saying now, where you teach somebody okay, do it like this, but once they have the framework, you can kind of lighten up and like, okay, well, find your own way of how to do this. Kind of like with throwing, I've learned that about throws, because like somebody will teach me a throw that's like, no, you have to do all these steps, and then eventually I kind of find a way to do the throw that works best for me.
Yeah.
And it works best for me. So I understand what you're saying. So that's an interesting philosophy. I like that.
Yeah, so that's how I look at competition. Like I think like it's a good way to keep people out of trouble. Like some of the Lohans, they were just like itching to get into a street fight to test their stuff. I'm like, that's too much risk. Like you don't need the first time to ever get punched be like in the streets. Like
Right.
or like, the legal aspect of self-defense too.
Yep.
Like what I mean? Like people find out you're trained and you just obliterate somebody. Like you
Right.
can't just do that to somebody because they bumped into you.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
What were the self-defense laws out in Vegas like?
Well, I think it's still like a stand your ground state. So, I mean, people open carry, which, probably not the best thing, but there are plenty of people that conceal carry too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I feel like it's, like outside of like the stand your ground laws and stuff, in general, like as long as you can like defend what you did, you'll be all right.
It's what you can prove.
Yeah, exactly. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. So
Yeah.
like if you can defend what you did and like it's reasonable, like
Right.
that's what they're looking for. It's like is what you did reasonable, justifiable,
Right.
Right.
and you'll be all right. And like I kind of take that across the board in the United States.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody cocks an attitude, you don't break their arm.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
9 out of 10, you need to walk away. But like if somebody's threatening you levels of force. you
Yeah,
know,
totally.
Right. Or minimum force necessary. Right.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question because, like I said, you're from a jiu-jitsu background as well. Do you feel like, and this could all depend on school and coaches and things like that, do you feel like maybe, so we talked about martial ethics and things like that. Are those things still taught in your jiu-jitsu school? Is it taught in the style? Do you feel like maybe people are getting away from that? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's so much that like sometimes I think traditional martial artists kind of be like, oh, like these jiu-jitsu guys are getting away from it. Like it's not so much that. MMA guys, yeah, totally, because like they're like these pro athletes and they're trying to ride the wave to make more money.
Yeah.
So they're going to embrace all the trashiness to like sell things, but like individual Muay Thai schools and jiu-jitsu schools, they're all right. Like they teach it in their own way. Obviously, I think they teach a little bit more in the kids classes, but like even for the adults classes, like it's just kind of like their biggest thing is they're big on treating adults like adults. So they just kind of assume that like, okay, well, you are right, but like that you know how to act right. But I know like for me, like I've gone through the extra steps to get like my jiu-jitsu black belt certified by the IBJJF. My academy that will be opening in May is also a certified IBJJF academy as well. In order to do that, I had to pass a background check, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty fresh.
That's interesting.
You know?
That's interesting.
That's good.
That's one of the steps. you know?
I think that's admirable because you don't want just anybody
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
teaching, martial arts, because like you just said before, if you can't do it with rules, how can you gonna do it without rules?
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's probably like a lot of it's like you said earlier, it probably comes down to the teacher too. You know, no matter the discipline.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
you know?
totally. Because
Right.
you still get people to slip through the cracks.
Right.
You know, because like there's people that have like bad attitudes and like certain things that aren't against the law,
Yeah.
but like should they be behaving that way? Probably not.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it's like
Right.
like if they're dishonest, like well,
Yeah.
there's no law that's like gonna come arrest you for lying, but at the same time, like
Yeah.
should you be lying? Like no.
right.
Right.
So to go to my next question, so in your opinion, what do you feel traditional martial arts are in your opinion?
What they are. I mean, as far as like, I just think like any martial art that has like a good extensive amount of history and has some ethics about how they conduct themselves. Some are stricter than others, but I think I think it's a loose tradition. Like I get what you're asking, and like I just feel like over time these things change too. You know what I mean? Because from a history point of view, oddly enough, like the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the way the Gracies taught it, older than Shotokan Karate, older than Taekwondo.
Right.
Even though those two styles are considered traditional martial arts, though.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true.
And Muay Thai, a lot of people are like trying to lump that into the modern sport martial arts, but Muay
been
Thai is
around a long
1,000
time.
years old. Yeah,
Yeah,
1,000
it
years old.
is. You're right.
I mean, I guess a lot of things would fall into that category.
It's funny because like I think the term traditional martial arts goes, even though people like equate it to time, but you like you just said, karate is really not as old as people think it is. You know what I'm saying? Or a lot of systems aren't as old as people think
Yeah.
they are, but they categorize them as traditional martial arts more so based on, I think and I'm gonna use this term, rituals, the traditions that you have, some of the ethics that you have in the school or dojo or wherever you train. Yeah.
Some of the wrestling disciplines go back.
Oh,
Yeah.
Greco-Roman wrestling.
That's what I'm saying. That's like way back.
Oh yeah, yeah, no.
Yes, I think sometimes it comes down to semantics of the word traditional.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah.
Right. So I guess my next question goes to, and I'm kind of bouncing around because I'm so interested. So do you feel traditional martial arts has maybe lost some of its effectiveness in the 21st century, in modern times?
It just depends who's teaching it, but in general, kind of like the emphasis on forms, but like some of the some of the historical things I've been reading, like that was just for Kung Fu to survive, really. Like in order to survive, it had to make that change. You know, like after the failure of the Boxer Rebellion, like the general Chinese public at the time, like we're talking like the early 1900s and stuff, kind of lost faith in it. And like, why should you even do that? Like only soldiers do it, only gangsters do it, and why not just use guns? You know, all this other stuff. So in order for it to survive, like that's kind of where Jing Wu came in, because Jing Wu was kind of like, we'll teach Kung Fu for nationalistic pride and for exercise. And then like how to keep people on the same page for exercise other than calisthenics, they just started teaching like the forms, started teaching routines more as opposed to sparring. You know, and so I think that's where it came from, at least from what I've studied and what I've read. You know, but some people have long gotten carried away from that. You know, because now that it's been saved, you would think like, okay, well maybe we can go back now, but some people just don't. You know, but that's not to say that they're not effective. Obviously, that's why we do them. We know they're effective, and not just like, and then like, I guess I like the semantic split hairs kind of, because effective for what? It kept me out of trouble.
Right.
That's a good way to think about it.
There you
That's
go.
true.
There you go.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, sometimes like it's funny, as I get older, I won't even entertain certain people when they're like, well, is this effective? I'm like, bro, you wouldn't even ask a pro basketball player that. You're trying to make $millions, so clearly it's effective for their life. You know? Like never in your life have you had to put a ball through a hoop to survive. But these guys do. I mean, not that they need it, but
it's clearly working for them.
Clearly
in one way,
working for
shape,
them.
or form.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Keep them in shape,
Making millions,
making money.
you know, so it is what it is. Like, you know, but yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like, and I get in these semantic battles. I'm sure you've gotten in these semantic battles, especially when you start talking about, Kung Fu, because a lot of times people think Kung Fu is just frou-frou, it doesn't work. Why are you doing that? You should just do boxing. You should do Muay Thai. You should do, MMA.
It's usually people that don't train that say that, though.
Yeah, it really is.
You know what I mean?
Because
Like,
I've dropped into like back home in Vegas Syndicate, and I've trained at Extreme Couture, like at the pro practices, mind you. Like I'm sparring
awesome.
with like Uriah Hall. I'm sparring with like Roy Nelson,
That's awesome.
and like I
Well,
sparred.
I know you guys said Roy Nelson trained there.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I
Uriah
want you to
Hall,
talk
he's-
about Roy. I
Okay.
want you to talk
Yeah,
about Roy.
definitely.
Uriah Hall, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's a super cool guy.
Yeah, he's
You know?
he's a cool dude. I always wonder, like, watching these people, which ones are like personality cool and which ones are like
Actually, cool people.
actually, you know. What I
Yeah.
mean? He,
The majority of them are like, even when they find out, I'm like, you're like, I don't hide nothing. I'm just like, oh yeah, I do kung fu, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and they're like, oh okay.
right.
And so like the guys that do this for a living,
Yeah.
like I've sparred Johnny Walker, Michael Pereira, or I guess Michel Pereira is how you say
Yeah.
his name, but whatever.
Yeah.
But I've sparred those guys. They're all like, oh okay.
Right.
Like that's
So
it.
they don't judge you.
No. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Maybe it's, we have all these internet trolls
That's all it is now.
Yeah,
know,
really all it is.
That's
Yeah.
really all. I was listening to a podcast, and one guy said something along the lines, basically like when the gun came into the picture, it was called the Great Equalizer for man. But then when the internet came into the picture, it was the Great Equalizer for all the people who just want to run their mouth.
Basically.
Oh, you're right.
really.
Out of all the karates, I don't really like. This is the only discipline I really train, but I've been to like several karate seminars, and everybody's like, where do you train? What do you train? I was like, I actually train kung fu, and everybody's like, oh, interested. It's not like, oh, that doesn't work.
Right,
It's
right,
like
right,
they're
right.
interested.
Right.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
people that really do things that are actually, boots on the ground doing things in life,
yep,
don't care. Like they
that's right.
just want to see motion.
That's right.
Like, we respect motion,
Yep.
so I don't. Yeah.
Talkers and doers.
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
hmm
Do you feel like, traditional, we're going to quotation that word, traditional martial arts, do you feel like they're getting back to some of the roots of more combat, more sparring, more application based rather than just forms?
Yeah, I think they do. Overall, people are starting to see that they have to be able to like prove that what we do works, and then it's not even just like prove to other people. It's for ourselves, and also just like it's just good to know. Like hope you never have to use it, but in case you do, like guys like I met Vincent Sung, the Wandering Warrior.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I just watched a video of his earlier.
We watched some. I watched some of his stuff too.
Yeah, I met him at the when I did that Shuai Jiao tournament in New York.
Oh,
Super cool guy. Like he's at the forefront of that. His instructor too was a Mantis guy who really was just focused on like heavy applications, not so much forms, and so it makes sense. Like, yeah, we out there, we're proving it works, and I think being able to like show a posture or show a sequence from a form or a kata or whatever, and then being like, okay, this is how you use it. I think it's huge.
Yeah.
And then also like whenever I would do the Technique Tuesday videos at Lohan, like I was one of the only ones that was just like, here, let me give you some competition footage of me doing this. And then be like, okay, now put together the video. We film the intro, film the technique. Then Lance would loop in the Sifu Lance, loop in the
The
clip.
videography you got. This is the video you showed me the other day.
Yeah,
right?
that's all-
The video.
that's all there is.
Whoever's doing that videography, they are.
yeah. That's shout out
he-
Sifu Lance.
Is that who he was talking about earlier?
Sifu
Yeah, that-
Harvey, Matt, those guys. They throw down.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good.
Because we also do stunts, so we also do fight choreography and things
Right.
like that too.
Yeah.
Especially back, obviously back in Vegas. Like, I'm flying back in June, do a little project with them.
Nice.
you know.
Oh, okay.
Like if the project's juicy enough, I'll fly back.
Right.
But,
Okay.
yeah. As long as I'm not like henchman number 40, then it's cool.
Right.
you don't get involved with that.
That's
Like, it's
awesome.
just something that's kind of just.
Yeah, Sifu Aaron Ortega just like had an idea one day that he wanted to do a stunt team, and then he talked to a few of the other seniors, and eventually they brought me in, and I was just like, yo, like we started working with a local company called Ismahawk, and there's some group of guys that went to UNLV for film, and they wanted
I've seen
to
them
do
on
a lot of-
YouTube.
yeah, Ismahawk.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did you remember the Nightwing series?
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
cool.
So our team choreographed that.
What?
Not me particular, but like the rest of the team did.
If I'm right,
That's
Sifu Lance
awesome.
did the stuff for Deathstroke, did he not?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Yeah, he did. Deathstroke is his claim to fame for sure.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is high quality. Like this
Go on
production
YouTube
is
and look it up.
nice.
There's like 3 or
When you're
4
talking to those guys, don't just remember a little old Joe B production. maybe we'll get an introduction one day. Maybe
for sure.
Maybe when I come to Vegas, I can
No,
chat them up.
yeah, totally. You should because
right.
Maybe we need to start a stunt team.
I mean, I'm down to.
I mean,
I'm down to do some stuff.
you know,
You do have a whole entire like YouTube series we planned out, and then there's nothing never
that
happened
is
with
true.
It. Yeah.
That is true. So maybe we need to resurrect that. So
That'd be super cool.
That's one thing I
You know?
haven't done as far as videography goes is like choreography for fight scenes. I have not done that, so I think it's going to be challenging.
but it'd be fun.
But it'd be fun. We could do it.
Yeah.
During COVID, his friend wrote us like this whole like what 5 or 6 episode thing.
Yeah, it
and
was.
It's got a great storyline to it. I'm like, we need to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you guys are close to Atlanta too, so like that's
Yep.
a stunt hub now.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that'd be really good for y'all.
When I did like college for this, right? Like that's kind of the progression is like Atlanta, New York, LA. You know? But I want to stay here. It's just like that is where there's a big stunt thing. There's a lot of filming going on down there. Those are the 3 big
I didn't
areas.
realize Atlanta
Vegas
was
is big too,
for,
obviously.
like stunt work and
You know,
movies and film and stuff like that until recently.
I was
Yeah,
about to
it's
say,
true. You know,
what's his name? Daniel
Hernandez.
Hernandez. Daniel Hernandez. I don't know if he's going to be at this tournament, but he's come to the Fall Classic before, and he's now getting into stunts and things like that. And his kung fu is phenomenal. He's really, really good.
nice.
And so, yeah, you're right. Like, I never knew Atlanta was such a hub. Sifu Dimitri Daniel.
Yeah.
He's had some stuff down
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
He's told me about some things that he's been doing down
Nice.
there. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. So, guys, we'll be right back. We're going to run the commercial break. We got bills to pay.
What's going on, guys? This is Sifu En Loe Boyd. Just trying to let you guys know, if you're ever in the Mesquite, Dallas, Texas area, Shinobi Grappling, aka Lohan School of Shaolin, Dallas, Fort Worth, will be open. Drop in for classes in traditional Kung Fu, Gi, No Gi, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Shuai Jiao, strength and conditioning. We'll run self-defense seminars. I'll have my people out to do seminars as well, so you can learn from other experts. It should be a good time. Email me, shinobigrappling@gmail.com, if you want to learn a little bit more. Follow the Shinobi Grappling Instagram, and also subscribe to the Shinobi Grappling Patreon as well.
And we're back to martial mentality. So, Sifu, let's start off with this juicy topic. Have you ever had to use your martial arts to protect yourself or protect someone else?
Yes, I have.
Okay, tell us some stories.
All right, so when I was working security, various types of security in Vegas, I've worked nightclub security, I've worked hotel casino security, I've done executive protection. I've had to use it. I'm using a combination of Kung Fu and just basic white belt Brazilian Jiu Jitsu at the time. All right, so I would usually just like take people down. Like if I took people down, it'd be something from Kung Fu, some Kung Fu based takedown. I've done like throws from like Mantis, throws from Northern Shaolin, you know, and I try to control people as best as I can, because like you can't just like let people fall willy nilly. Some people, most of them are drunk or high, you know, they bang their head, it's a wrap. Right? So you want to make sure they're like
That'd be your fault, right?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
And they'll come after you criminally or civilly. All right.
I see.
Even if you beat the criminal case, usually it's hard to beat the civil, which means like they sue you for money, right?
Right.
Versus, like, you know,
Medical bills and everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and then usually as far as the jiu-jitsu aspect, I would use like the kimura to help me arrest people if I need to put like cuffs on somebody. But a lot of times just positional. Knee on belly was my favorite, because you could drive a lot of pressure into people, but then it's easy to get up. Like I wouldn't really mess too much with mount or side control, you know, because I lose visibility. You know, I have eyes in the back of your head, you know. But even with knee on belly, even if you're like, you just suspect someone's behind you, just get up.
Right.
You know, you know, you're like, oh, even if there's no one behind you, at least you covered your bases.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and then even some of the standing joint locks came from Kung Fu as well. You know, like there is like Kung Fu's broken up Ti Da Shuai Na, right? So kicking, punching, throwing, wrestling, and Shin Na, which is your joint lock. So I would do those too. I used to gooseneck people a lot. This one, the elbow into your belly or chest, whatever.
That one
press down.
hurts so bad.
I'd walk people out like that. Walk people out like an Egyptian. Somebody would have this, and I would have this. You know?
My dad was in law enforcement. He said that was his go-to a lot of the times when it came to having to put, get cuffs on people, put people in the car and stuff.
Yeah, see? So I also found out too that like biting was overrated. So like, yeah, biting was a little overrated. Like as far as like the self-defense crowd, they're like, bite them, do whatever you want to do. Like, you got to do what you got to do. And it's like, it's a little overrated. So we had this one guy who was like bugging out on drugs, and some of the other guards were having trouble with him. And then I came in and they're like, hey, he's biting. And I was like, okay. I put knee on belly on him, put more pressure on him. And of course he felt the pressure, because when you do knee on belly, it's like 90-10, right? 90% of your weight's on the knee, that's on the belly. For me, it was knee on sternum. I like doing knee on sternum. And then the other leg, that 10% is just there to counterbalance you, But I was putting the pressure on him. I was like, okay, let's see if he'll stop off that. And then he wasn't, because he was like trying to turn and bite. So then I just sank in like a collar choke, but I didn't like finish the choke, obviously.
Right,
I don't want
exactly.
this guy going out,
Right.
But like when he would go to bite, I would just squeeze and be like, he would stop, and then I let go and be like, "You done?" And like, But it's because that's how you like, stop it. Like if I had to do something to stop it, you know what I mean? And then like to me, like head control is way better. Like even using your head to control somebody else, way better than biting. Less risk of diseases. You know what I mean? Like, head controls like pays dividends.
What would you say is one of the more dangerous situations you've had to be involved in, where your martial arts has maybe saved your life or saved somebody else's life?
I would say at Dre's there was like a big it's almost like someone set off like a false alarm as far as like shooting. Someone was like, someone's shooting, and like Dre's they're at Cromwell, and Cromwell's always like got Metro doing overtime because it's that kind of place, But most of the casinos do, even Cosmo has like Metro officers doing overtime and stuff. But it was during the Mayweather and Conor McGregor boxing match, and like that had just wrapped, and then somebody yelled out, "There's a fight!" And then they're like, "Someone's shooting!" And we're like, "Oh!" But like you could see the fight in front of us. I jump over the ropes, pretty much like tackle a kid down, put the knee on belly pressure on him, flip him over, that whole situation. And then we all had to like split, because it was kind of for nothing. Because once Metro got moving, it was like they drew their guns. You're like, yo, we gotta go. We departed out the employee entrance. We met at the Flamingo. That was like our meeting point. And then they were like, well, it turns out it wasn't a shooting, but you know what I mean?
You got to take that stuff serious. You got to take it serious.
Any kind of threat like that is serious. Like you can't just be like, oh, that's
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to tell them about one of your students who had a recent encounter?
Oh my goodness. So we talked about this a little bit recently.
Oh yeah.
So one of my students works at an adult shop. And her name is Bobby. You've met Bobby before, I think.
Yeah.
But so Bobby is a very aggressive young lady, and she takes her job very seriously. And so she has a lot of people from the outside community who are either homeless or maybe they're vagrant, and so they come in the store and they try to steal. Well, this gentleman came in the store, and he was trying to steal an object, and Bobby, I mean, this man was probably about your size.
Jeez.
I mean, he was a big guy. And Bobby's like, and we watched the video. She's just manhandling this dude, pushing him around, like, pushed him on the ground. She's like, give my stuff back. Well, what was happening that she didn't realize was he had a gun on his ankle.
What?
He tried to pull it, but didn't get to it. And she scared him off so much that he just kind of just ran away. And of course, we talked to her about that, about being more aware. But it's interesting, especially like hearing her stories, how she's had to use her kung fu quite a bit at her job. And it's interesting to see like what she's doing and how it affects her. And unfortunately, we've had to use some kung fu here at the school, because we've had some people come here and try to not be so nice. But, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think how you're trained, where you're trained, who you train with can definitely, make the difference in making sure that your martial arts is effective if you need to protect yourself or somebody else.
Yeah.
So definitely. So I want to ask, are there any other stories that you like to, tell us about where you've had to use your martial arts in any way, shape, or form?
I mean, even there's sometimes people come in trying to challenge us. We get people, oddly enough, the most challenges we would get is from other security people that wanted to come to my Wednesday nights and like be like, well, let's see what you got, and like,
Would they come to the Lohan school?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Piggyback off that. I want to hear more about that. I'm curious.
So, sorry to cut, not to cut you off.
No,
It's
go
just
ahead.
like we talked about this the other day. It's like when you had when we was talking about Myrtle Beach. It's like I would imagine we was talking about how they're inland a little bit, right? So if you were on the Strip, you'd probably see more of that. And you're in Vegas,
Yeah.
so that's probably part of the reason you see a lot more of like people coming in and challenging you just because of the environment. You know, it's like where our location here, like every now and then there's some few sketchy characters are hanging about, but like, you know, it's not like you're going to get people like a lot of other schools or security like that kind of thing coming in to like check you out as much. You know,
Yeah, because a lot of the guys a lot of people move to Vegas. It's almost like fantasy land for them, you know, because like they're going to be something that they're not. Because they're going to move somewhere else, and then they're going to settle down and shed that persona, and like, you know what I mean? Like, just turn it all around.
Probably get a lot of travel. Like, a lot of people come through there for traveling.
Yeah, absolutely, for different conventions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Not even for gambling, just like different conventions
Yeah.
and just, you know, like a fresh start for some people. So they act a fool sometimes. Some people take that fresh start and just act a fool.
out,
So,
yeah.
so they'd be like, they want to challenge you. You like, especially working in security, you never work with so many like washed up people in your life. Like sometimes like the way seriously, they be talking like they be so like, yeah, you know, I used to do this, that, and the third. Like, bro, you're not who you used to be. You are who you are.
What are you
That's
doing
just
now?
how life works.
Right.
You
My
know?
man said washed up.
Bro, but then you also work with some people that are like badass. Like when I worked at Dre's, I worked with Puna Soriano. He fights in UFC.
Nice.
You know,
That's really cool.
and then when
That's
we were training with him, like working with him, he was still amateur.
Yeah.
And then I had just won a Sanda fight out at Tempt One. It used to be called Tempt One. Now it's called Golden Dragon. And I was showing everybody the clip at work. And then his coach, Coach Nate Pettit, he also worked with us. He was a wander. Puna wanted too. Like I was an ID checker and stuff, you know. But I could kill it at wanding too. I'd definitely find some drugs on people for sure.
Yeah.
But I killed it in IDs. I used to train other people to check IDs and stuff. But I showed that to Nate, and he was like, well, you should come to the pro practice, you know. And we got a Groupon for Extreme Couture for the month, and then that's when I was sparring Roy, and that's when I was sparring Uriah Hall, Vinny Magalhaes, all those guys, you know, because. But I had to get the invite. It was super cool that he saw me, he saw I was moving, he was like, yeah, just come in,
Right.
you know.
That's awesome.
So to kind of go piggyback on what you're saying. So, you know, I've always been told Roy Nelson, well, not always been told, I know Roy Nelson was a student of Sifu's. And for those of you who don't know who Roy Nelson is, he is a awesome mixed martial arts fighter, champion. Was he a champion at one
Big
point?
country.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if he ever won a championship, but either way, he's got a lot of respect in the MMA community. And so just tell us about like, you know, training with him and how it was. And, you know, I've heard that he would use a lot of praying mantis in his fights, actually, that he would learn from Dashi and things of that nature. So if you don't mind expounding upon, you know, just how it was training with Big Country Roy.
Well, definitely, he wouldn't go as hard as you think he would go. Like, it's still very technical. Most of these pros, a lot of them, unless it's designated hard sparring, a lot of them don't go hard.
Right.
Like, still very technical. We're pushing the pace.
Yep.
Like, yeah, he's a cardio machine, so he wouldn't seem like it just based off his physique. He's very big on, like, no, let's get our rounds in, let's get technical. Because obviously, if he's sleeping people, you're not going to get rounds. Or you're going to have to go do, like, the bike. And, like, oh, let's do the bike. You want to spar, you know?
Right,
Let's be
exactly.
real.
Right.
You know, but he even told me that the reason why he can take a beating was because of Iron Shirt.
Wow, okay.
Nice.
Interesting.
And he said he still does it. Like, you know, because, you know, you don't have to be celibate like Golden Bell.
Right.
You know, all that stuff. You just, you know, you could just hit yourself even. You could just do aspects of Iron Shirt and still help you.
Right.
You know, so he credited Iron Shirt heavily because a few years ago, you know, like, well, a few years ago from when I sparred him, I sparred with him, I was working with him in 2017. And I would say maybe like 2014, I think, 2013, he fought Fabricio Verdun. And like, he went 3 rounds and he was getting like beat up. And people were like, I can't believe he's still standing. He's not knocked out. But like, yeah, Iron Shirt. He credits the Iron Shirt, you know.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice. That is awesome.
Even that overhand right comes from a few of our forums that he's put people to sleep with.
Yep.
Yeah, we
That's
talked
what he's
about
known
that.
for, yeah.
We've talked about that, and we've actually looked at footage and study. And then you're right, like, Northern Shaolin Praying Mantis has that overhand right all throughout a lot of their sets and stuff like that. But, I think a lot of people don't train enough to pull out the fighting aspect and the applications and how it's used. And then you don't pressure test it enough. Unfortunately, you got a lot of people, you do got to spar. You do got to work the technicality, like you just said. You said you got pro fighters who are practicing technical movements to get their rounds in. Well, who says that we shouldn't be doing some of the same things?
Absolutely. You got to be sparring. All those years I put in sparring, I still reap the rewards even though I don't spar regularly anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's still second nature to me. Like, I spar jiu-jitsu wise,
Right.
But, like, I'm not trying to be a burden to Renee later in life, so I don't spar as much because I'm not, like, it's not my job, right?
Right,
but, like,
right.
Well, I mean, it is my job to teach, but it's not my job to be a pro fighter. So
Exactly.
You know
Right.
what I mean? But, like, so that's the reason why, like, I still reap the benefits of that stuff, you know what I mean? Like, to me, I've always had the plan of just, like, I'm going to do a lot of fighting when I'm young, and then as I get older, I'll stop. But then I'll have seen what I could do. Whereas, like, some people are like the reverse or just don't have that mindset at all. And you're just like, man, you just wasted your youth.
Or the reverse. Sometimes they'll just stop.
Yeah.
Completely stop. And as you just said, like, even if you're not sparring, you're still working.
Yeah,
you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're weightlifting, some people, like, it seems like they will, I used to do this, like you said earlier, they'll say, I used to do this, but it's like, what are you doing now? They've completely stopped everything.
Yeah, and that's terrible. Like,
It's not good for you.
It's close to dying. Like, retirement's close to dying. It's overrated.
Right.
Like, I took some time off recently when I moved to Texas. I want to enjoy my new home, want to enjoy my new city.
Of course.
Yeah, once I started getting heartburn laying down, I was like, something got to change.
Time to move.
Yeah.
Time to move around.
So what I'm hearing you say is, don't be like those washed up guys that you were talking about. Don't be like them. Don't be like, well, I used to.
Keep it moving.
Right, exactly. Right. Don't
I
be.
could do this at one point.
Right.
Yeah, back in my day.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
I won't lie. I've caught myself saying that recently. Well, back in my day, I'm like, oh no.
Nope.
Got to do something.
Yeah, a lot of people just teach you what not to do.
That's true.
There you go.
That's true. That's true. Well, in my experience, and this is why I respect you so much, is that you got a lot of people who, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. Well, you're doing both. And so a lot of people respect that nowadays because it's like, I can go to Enloe about something. And that's why I share so many videos with you because I'm like, man, look at this guy getting knocked out, man. You seen this technique? And we're always going back and forth. But like, I know that you've experienced that or you've seen something like that. And like, we can converse. And so if I have a question about something, I can come to you and say, well, what do you think about this? And I know you're going to give me an opinion based off of experience, or you can guide me to somebody who may say, maybe I haven't experienced this, but this person can show you, or this is where you can find that. And so like for me, I just want to thank you because like that's brotherhood in the martial arts. Like a lot of people don't get that anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And like even though like we live in two completely separate areas, we train in two different areas per se, we still have that connection.
Yeah,
and so like for me, that's what's important about the martial arts that I think some people don't get that. Where there's that community where we can like connect on that level. So
the longer I stay in it, the more I'm seeing it.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like
awesome.
It's really cool,
It's a small world.
So, quick story. I don't know if you remember this, but I was in Vegas about 2 years ago, and I was walking downtown, and I happened to see him, and he was just walking in the suit, and I'm like, "Oh, what's up, Enloe?" He's like, "What's up, man?" I'm just like, "Who knows?" You know what I'm saying? Like, you just walking around, and you see somebody but that's cool because you know what I'm saying? Like, how often can you do that in life?
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, I can't even go in Vegas without getting spotted, like in general. It's a smaller town, too.
I was about to ask, how big is it really? It's like
not that large at all.
Surrounded by desert, right?
Well, it's surrounded by mountains, too, so it's going to limit how far they can grow out.
Gotcha. Oh, I see. I see.
And it's got a surprisingly high altitude. Like when I went to Denver, I wasn't affected.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Okay.
I've been to Denver once, and I could feel this. I wasn't over there training and working out. I was just working my job. But
I went to Colorado
Different air.
Springs. I went to Denver and Colorado Springs, and it took me about 2 or 3 days to acclimate.
Yeah.
It was rough. Even going upstairs, I was winded. I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So, Sifu, do you have anything else that you like to shout out? Any other stories you like to tell? Anything that you like to tell our YouTube viewers?
So I tell this story a lot, and like my school brothers know I've told this story quite a bit about like Sifu, where he was talking about like, so Sifu had just a ton of life experience too. So it made it easier for him to run a school because he knew how to just talk to people of various walks of life, you know, and in addition to the customized or semi-customized curriculums, like he just knew how to relate to people on a level. You know, he said one time while he was out, he met a guy. This guy kind of messed up, recovering from some like accident medical stuff, and he was talking to the guy, and the guy was like, "Yeah, basically, I worship I was doing some Satan worshiping, you know, like Church of Anton LaVey and all this other stuff." And he was talking about how, well, but then this happened, all this happened, I hurt myself, I broke this bone, car got wrecked, blah blah blah, all these separate incidents, and racking them up. And then Sifu was like, "Well, you ever tried like not worshiping Satan?" And the guy was like,
something wasn't working for you.
You know?
Yeah.
Like that was one of my favorite stories too. You know, tell people. But one of the reasons why I love that story so much too, not because it's just like the obvious, like, yeah, that shit is mad funny, but I also like too that like you got to be able to take stock of your life too.
Yeah,
that's what I also took away from it too, because it's not always as extreme as like worship Satan. Sometimes like some people's success, a lot of people aren't afraid of success. A lot of people are afraid to give up whatever dumb shit they've been doing, and that's going to hold them back from success. You know,
I see that a lot.
You do see that a lot, dude, like for real. So I'd say that. Also, like I was telling my fiance recently too that like Sifu was phenomenal, like Ghostbuster. Like, you know, I told you that yesterday too. Yeah, like right. Like crush demons easily. You know, because he was doing the spiritual warrior class too. You know, the spiritual warrior class was based largely on like Native American spirituality, Buddhism, Taoism. You know, so those are the main things, you know. But Sifu had trained to be a Catholic priest at some point in his life.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He did, yeah. It was.
He's done a lot.
That there's a, like awesome 2-hour video of him talking to some guy on YouTube, and he goes in and talks about that a little bit.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he said the only thing he really liked about the Catholics is that like they had spiritual practices. Because to him, like even spirituality was like kung fu. It's something you have to practice, like, you know, something you have to work towards, you know, as opposed to just like faith based. Just like, well, I'll just sit around, just hope. You know? But even other Christians are like, nah, man, faith without works.
That's right.
That's right, man. That's right.
You know, and
that's right.
So everyone's getting on that path, like, and even Sifu was just like ahead of that. It was just ahead of the curve on that. Like I was like, this man's phenomenal. You know?
Yeah.
Seriously.
He was an amazing man. One of my quick Sifu stories is I'll never forget, like just kind of meeting him. He was just really cool and laid back. And it was always like when he met a person, and I could tell this about him really quickly just by meeting him, he kind of treated you like he had known you like your whole life. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't act like you were a stranger, which was really interesting. So like you were really apt to be comfortable around him. Yeah. You didn't feel like who is this guy? Like it was just kind of like, oh man, that's Dashi Steve. Like that's my homeboy. Like, you know, we cool. We're talking about stuff like that, and like you could pretty much like talk to him about anything. And you know, I remember, you know, having some conversations with him before his passing, may he rest in peace. Just, you know, and just talking to him, and like it was never awkward, it was never strange, it was never like, you know, some people put you in that mindset like I can't really talk to you, but he was never like that. And so you know, just his personality, man, he left an amazing impact on so many people. So
yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean, and it definitely bleeds into how I treat people, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to replicate that for my school and just in general, you know. Plus, like my own father was like that too, as well, you know, like in his own way. Yeah. But I think one last thing too was like, so Sifu had to make that turn himself. So he used to kind of be like a really hard instructor, like, you know, like he could be like really tough. But then he said one day he made a grown man cry in training.
Oh wow!
And he was like, well, I should probably dial it back. But then he was like, also noticed too that like the only people he was really getting were like big guys that wanted to fight, because like the OG students, so that would be Roy, the twins, Omar, Bobby. Yeah, shout out to all those OG scenes from the garage. They tended to be bigger guys. Like Omar's my height, Roy's Roy, obviously. The twins aren't as tall as me, but they're stocky, but they can move, you know, like they're stocky, but they can move. They're very flexible, you know, kick hard. You know, Bobby, big stocky dude too. You know, like he was one of those guys where like Sifu Bobby, he you'd have to hit him, you know, for iron shirt. Like he couldn't just do that himself. Like he was at a point where like you had to hit him, especially on the back, and he could just like you'd be just wailing on him, and he's just like, all right, cool, that's my iron shirt, thanks. Go through the rest of it, you know, like he couldn't just do that on his own. Like dude was tough, and so but super good at internal, really good at internal. Like big guy, but like had to, you know, chi down, all this stuff, you know, like had his tai chi down, all that. But he was like, no, I want to open up the school more to others. That's once he made that character turn and became more like embraced the spirituality, embraced like, well, maybe I should dial back on my coaching. Got more women, got, you know, people of various sizes, and they all like played a role in like making the school, you know, because like the lion dance team grew, you know. Like that's how the school. I seriously think like being at Lohan School was like the closest thing to being at the Xavier Institute as you could be.
You got the X-Men, huh?
That's a good way to describe it.
A lot of personalities, huh?
Yeah, seriously, right? Guys
awesome.
that can carry a whole solo comic, but then we're strong together in a group. You know?
Okay.
It's a wrap.
You know?
I'm sorry, I gotta ask a question. Now that you went comic book, so who was Wolverine out of the group? Who's Wolverine?
Either Easy or Vu.
Okay.
Yeah, either Sifu Easy or Vu. Like in some ways, maybe Vu was like Old Man Logan, but Sifu Easy for sure, because like he just like both Easy and Wolverine have like this mainstream appeal of like they're intense, like they want to be left alone, but they do have just better stories with a group, you know, and like they have that like passion, that fire for what they do. That's also magnetic, even though so they want to be alone, but like their personalities are just too magnetic. For people, you know,
that's pretty cool.
It is, you know. And but then like aggressive, you know.
Yeah.
Both short, just kidding. No, well they are, but I'm just saying. You know, so
Yeah.
Well, Sifu, please shout out your all your social media, how people can find you, where they can find you, your Patreon, all of that. Share that with our listeners, please.
Yeah, IG Shinobi Grappling. You can follow my actual personal page, Enloe Shaolin, all one word. YouTube Shinobi Grappling, so you can see me in action. You can see my full-length matches, fights, whatever, in action. Our fight choreography stuff is on there, all kinds of stuff. Like that's like my digital footprint for real is YouTube. You can subscribe to my Patreon. Patreon's a paid site. I have tutorials on there. You can request videos. There's different tiers. So sign up for a membership, message me on Patreon, and I can do requests for technique videos on Patreon. It's a good way for me to make some passive income too, you know, so you want to see me compete more, travel more, like maybe support the Patreon. I have shirts for sale, hoodies for sale. That's also on my main website, the shinobigrappling.universe site, you know, so get at me.
Shirts and t-shirts are the shirts and hoodies are very comfortable. I have both.
Pretty
thank
dope
you.
logo.
No problem.
Don't worry, I'll be supporting that, and I still owe you a shirt, and you will definitely be getting that.
You'll be getting one of mine too.
Yes.
Awesome. I just didn't know what your size was.
Double XL.
Double XL?
I like the logo and the name.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
And I got two, so this is just the OG vanilla one.
Okay.
Then I have the other one with my Fretson wings because I'm affiliated under Fretson Paixão.
I think the hoodie I have has the wings on it.
Yeah, the hoodie only has the wings.
Gotcha.
That's cool.
Nice.
So, guys, thank you for our collab with Beyond the Dojo. This is Martial Mentality, signing out.